Hello everybody, it's Claymore here and welcome back to episode 4 of the CLAYCAST. And this time, we're not going to be talking Tarkov, we're not going to be talking anything else. It's going to be a pure session, pure episode based off Dark and Darker, at least the recent playtests. And today I am joined by two very good friends of mine, very prominent people in the communities I know them in. I'm going to introduce you to Timo Redbeard, the guy with the obviously magnificent beard right below me. And the very fabulous, the very unfairly handsome Onepeg, just in my corner there. We've known each other, I would like to say, through Tarkov as well. A lot of roots go back to Tarkov and stuff, but we all kind of like recently reconnected back again through Dark and Darker. But either way, I'll get started. Timo, introduce yourself, mate. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into Dark and Darker.
Yeah, so I'm Timo. I'm a variety content creator working off of Twitch and YouTube primarily. I was massively into Tarkov. I think about 7,600 hours in Tarkov the last I checked. That was always the extraction shooter world was a world that I just absolutely loved. I've moved away from that for the most part in the past couple of years and do a variety of all sorts of things. And actually this playtest of Dark and Darker that just happened was actually my first one because I wasn't sure about the game up until that, and I still wasn't until I played it. And then as soon as I played it, I was hooked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar. First playtest I literally started playing on the night of it going down, and then I just felt like the addiction setting a little bit, not quite fully set though. The second playtest was when I really got kind of like stuck in. Onepeg, same question to you, mate. Introduce yourself and tell us how you get started on the game.
Hi, I'm Onepeg. I am a boomer meat popsicle that streams on Twitch and on YouTube. Well, I make YouTube recorded videos and I stream on Twitch. I got started with Dark and Darker during the September playtest. There were no YouTube videos that existed about Dark and Darker before I made a YouTube video about it. Kind of like telling everybody. I played it for an hour and a half. A friend of mine that I was playing Mortal Online 2 with asked me to play Dark and Darker with them when they had like the first evening of their playtest. I'm like, the hell is this? Started playing it, got like an hour and a half in. I think we played like 2-3 like runs and went, this game is amazing. I'm making a YouTube video about it right now to tell everybody that they have to come play this because it's only around for the weekend because it was like a 3-day deal. So there were no videos about the game. I looked, I couldn't find anything. I searched forever. No one had ever seen it, heard it. There was nothing that existed. So I made a video, and then they went from, I think the first night they had like 400 or 500 concurrent players, and then by the end of the weekend they were at 10,000.
Wow.
So word of mouth traveled super fast after that, which was cool. Like that video didn't get a lot of views, but I have a feeling like the people that watched it were like guys that. And then I told Sacriel, I DM'd actually I sent Sacriel a DM on Twitter, and I was like, I just played this game and you're going to love this game. You have to come play this game with me tomorrow. And he was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll come check it out. And then he was addicted, so then it just kind of kept going. You know, it was really cool. Yeah, so I've been playing since then. It wasn't the very first play test. It was the second one, but the first play test, I think they might have had like 150 like concurrent players or something, 100 players. So, more or less at the start.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I actually, now you mentioned it, remember Mortal Online. I remember seeing a bunch of footage from you, Clean, and other people on Twitter and stuff like that, and seeing a bunch of stuff there. It did look cool. And now that I'm thinking about it, there's some comparison to draw between that game and Dark and Darker in terms of aesthetics at the very least. But yeah, no, I did know that you were the first person to make a video about it. And I have a good friend of mine who actually originally told me about Dark and Darker when it did have that very small player base and how he went high roller, leaderboard, stuff like that. You know, so yeah, no, definitely the timeline adds up, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, personally for me, like I said, I got started literally on the night of the first playtest going down. I wanted to see. I think I had the same reaction that nearly everybody I got to play it had, and that's that. Damn, this game is sucked for a solo player. Sucked so bad. Like, what's the point of it? Like, but then, and then the same friend who got me into it said, just play a fighter, use your second wind ability. You know, rely on that. Keep learning, keep throwing your head against the wall, and it'll break through it. And that's pretty much what happened. And then I got to playtest 2. I didn't make a bunch of content on it for playtest 2. I just wanted to kind of like really kind of enjoy it and see if it was almost real, like see if it was a real thing. Turns out it did. So yeah, brilliant. Right then. Okay, so next first, I guess you could say second question technically. Onepeg. I know the answer to this, but for the viewers at home, what is your favorite class or classes to play currently?
That would be the Wizard.
Yeah, I knew.
I play Wizard and Cleric primarily, depending on who I'm playing with. I don't mind playing support at all, actually. Like I'm cool with it. So yeah, I like playing Cleric a lot. I'll buff the shit out of somebody that wants to go ugga and go dunk on people. Like, it's fun. As long as they don't like line of sight the heal, piss me off.
Yeah, I'm guilty of doing that with my Cleric teammates too.
Everybody.
Yeah. And I knew. I mean, obviously we played already. I knew your choice of class was the Wizard, anyways. Especially with your Fireball snipes, I could tell there was some experience.
Those are dirty, man.
Yeah, genuinely.
Yeah.
And even then with the Cleric as well. Just bouncing off that a little bit. Josh, he played a bonk Cleric, or like not a bonk Cleric, but like a drunken monk kind of build Cleric, and he picked up a quarterstaff, built a lot of stats in it, and I swear to you, he was going around one-shotting even barbarians with his build, buffing himself and stuff like that.
Yep. If you hear the Cleric burp, you're in trouble.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I remember drinking beer for the first time as a fighter as well. Would not recommend.
No, get you all cracked out. You can't
Would
see.
not recommend. Yeah,
it's awful. I can't even look at the screen. Like, I tried it once and I was like, this is making me motion sick.
It's like this beer's made out of pure LSD or something. Like it's mad, absolutely mad. Yeah. But yeah, Timo, same question to you, mate. I think I know the answer already as well. But yeah, go ahead. What's your favorite class or classes to play?
I'm a massive fighter nerd.
Yes, man. Yes. Yeah.
Honestly, so obviously, first play test on the first day, I was like, because normally, in any sort of game that I play that has sort of roles in it, I will normally play a tank or I will play a healer. I'm not really interested in playing a DPS at any point in time. Like throughout MMOs, throughout RPGs, everything, I've always played like something that has more use than just hitting something. So I picked up a Cleric and I played with Hayes, and we just died repeatedly. Just the two of us queuing into castle. It was both our first days playing Dark and Darker. We just died all day. And by the end of it, I was loving it and he was hating it.
Yeah, I remember seeing him post about it on Twitter too. Yeah.
I was there like, I died all day and had the best day of my life. And he was like, I died all day and I just don't know what's happening. What is this game? But the next day I decided to try out a fighter. It felt really good, mostly because Second Wind allowed me to outplay squads. And that was the big thing. It was like, if I got my footwork correct, I could use Second Wind as a way to just win fights against multiple opponents. And that felt really, really great. When fighter really clicked though was when I picked up a crossbow for the first time.
Yeah.
I picked up a crossbow for the first time, and that was when I was like, I love fighter. It's when like a ranger peeks you like from an entire room away and starts like sniping you, and you just pop out and just headshot them with the crossbow and they drop, and you're just like, they're mad.
That was easily one of my favorite things as well. Like you said, playing with the Second Wind and sprint, you can by the time Second Wind ends, you can wipe squads as long as you play well, and as long as like they're good players, they'll know how to counter it, stay away from stuff. But it's so satisfying, man. And the crossbow as well. I think it's funny, really, because I don't like the range classes mostly, but I do feel like I have to try a ranger. And then I picked up a crossbow, like you said. No need. I've got a crossbow. It's fine. I don't need to try ranger anymore. It's fine. But yeah, no. I when it comes to me, man, I think next playtest, I'm not joking. I'm gonna make 5 different fighter characters just so I have more fighter gear to stockpile and work with. Because I can't. I also want to make a character as well to specifically make for like tanking bosses and stuff like that. Build the right stats there and stuff. So, but yeah, fighters and wizards, no rangers because there's too many goddamn rangers anyway. Too many of them. There's too many.
There is, and they're always so boring to fight.
Yeah, look at you, Spud. Solo top 10 player ranger. It's easy. Anyways, right then. So, that's out the way and done with. So something a bit more broader, but we'll summarize it down into 3 of each. So, recent playtest came by. You can obviously reference this with previous playtests, but we're looking at this playtest specifically. sort of freshen our minds and stuff like that. So, Timo, we'll start off with 3 things you liked a lot about this playtest. Obviously, if you said this is your first playtest, but if you give us 3 things you like, and then right after 3 things you dislike, or something, you could use maybe some changings or something.
Yeah, so I mean the speed of everything I love. I think one of the things that really turned me off of Tarkov was the time it took to get into a raid could be 15-20 minutes once you kit it up and you've got yourself sorted, and then you might die within 90 seconds to an issue that is within the game. So like desync with a right hand peek or a cheater or an invisible player or something, all these different things. You might go through 20 minutes of prep to just die to something that's not even your fault straight away, right?
Yeah.
And it feels so slow. With Dark and Darker, it's quick. Like if you die, if you want to, you can literally just hit the Q button again. You've got a basic kit. You can just go play and just fight, right? Obviously, you get to a point where you're re-kitting up every time, but it's always fast. And then the time from like getting out of one raid to getting into another, if it was a successful raid, it's as simple as just like selling all your treasures to the collector and dumping the rest of the stuff in your stash hit and go again, and you're in within 90 seconds. And I love that. The combat. And this is both a positive and a negative actually. The combat feels amazing. It's purposeful, it's intentional, it's skillful. Like 80-90% of it is actually in the footwork and not actually like in the actual hitting of people. And as someone that's a big melee slasher fan, someone that's played a lot of Mordhau, a lot of Chivalry 2, a lot of Mortal Online 2, it is exactly what I was looking for this game. The only downside, like the negative side of that, is that from a viewer perspective and as a viewer experience, the combat is really, unless you are a player of the game, it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
And this is a feedback that I've gotten a ton, is that the combat is difficult to watch unless they themselves have played the game. If there's someone that like prefers to watch and not play, like a Tarkov has a great viewer experience generally, whereas Dark and Darker, the viewer experience for someone that hasn't experienced the combat themselves is hard to watch. And that was the main reason why I didn't pick up until this playtest either, was because I'd watched it before and I was like, this looks really janky, it looks wrong, I'm not sure. It wasn't until I'd actually experienced it, and then immediately I was like, "Oh, I love it." But
yeah,
there is a disconnect there.
I do really agree with that, because I had the exact same thought. I looked at the combat, I thought, "What? This doesn't look fun. Like it looks like it reminds me of like Elder Scrolls Oblivion. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the set swipes and stuff like that. We liked it back then, but obviously we've come a ways. But then I started playing it, and I was like, "This is actually way more deep." It was way more brains I got to put in than I think, actually. There's way more complexity. And then every single person, and I said this earlier, every single person I said to try the game, they were like, they had the same reaction. Oh, I don't know, this is really my style of game. I have one guy who like always played Tarkov with me, always played Cycle with me. Pick up this game. Sure, he wasn't going to like it. Ended up just being as addicted as the rest of us. So yeah, no, I definitely agree. I definitely agree with those points. And yeah, I mean, like you said, everything has intention. If you miss an attack, suddenly you feel like, uh-oh. You know what I mean? Like, then the plan's there. Suddenly you got to change your footwork and stuff like that. And that's where a bit of the Mordhau, I think, comes into play, where you kind of like you're crouching and like swinging your body away and stuff. Like the amount of barbarian axe swings I've dodged doing that it never gets old. Never gets old.
Yeah, there's definitely something towards the very end of this playtest. I started putting some of my Mordhau and Chivalry sort of skills into the game. With excels and drags, is actually it's lessened in Dark and Darker, but there is an element of excels and drags and stuff like that in Dark and Darker that I've started to sort of form in. One of the big things is actually jumping in Dark and Darker. The amount of barbarians I've gone up against, and they've gone for a big headshot swing, and I've just jumped, it's hit my kneecap, and then I've wailed on their head a couple of times, or in the same ways it's they're like coming into swing, and I just like rotate my body to the left as I'm swinging also and crouch, and like my weapon like immediately hits them faster, they panic, they miss. There's a lot of that sort of like skill-based stuff I'm really enjoying figuring out.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my, as a fighter via fighter with a shield, one of my favorite things to do is to pretend I'm about to attack them, but then jump right halfway from my swing so I can then angle it over the shield.
Yeah.
But they never prepare for that. They never prepare for that. That's just another little thing that adds complexity and layers upon the gameplay. But yeah, Onepeg, same question to you, mate. We'll start with 3 things you like, 3 things you could use changing or dislike. Go ahead.
Let's see, things I like. I like the pacing a lot. Actually, I like how the fights can be turned. Reminds me a lot of like MOBA gameplay where it's like, oh, they might be screwed, but then they're not.
Yeah.
You know, and like you can make flanks and make brain plays, and you know, it's in my experience, this game is a lot more about like the decisions that you make when you go to engage with people, you know, either to go in, go out, you know, come back, you know, retreat, all that stuff, switch back on people or not. It's a lot more in the decision making that you make as opposed to like how good you are at like parrying attacks, you know, and the like, although that does come into play. I really like the like from the outside, I really like the development team. I think that they have a good head on their shoulders. I think that they are very receptive and they are refreshingly transparent in terms of like their decision making processes and like their development like avenues, like the ideas that they have in their head and what they're trying to accomplish, and receptiveness to criticism when it comes to the player base. Like, you know, guys are memeing away from the last interview I did with Terry, the CEO, because the microphone was horrendous that he was using in the room. It was like this big echo, like it sounded like he was broadcasting from inside of an oil drum. And, you know, a lot of people were joking on it. And like the only thing that they said in response was, we will invest in a better microphone for the next one, you know? So I like that, you know, it's not like they're not taking any of this like personally. It's just like, all right, well, you know, they're just, they understand what it means to have to like filter this into something constructive, you know, as opposed to a bunch of morons on the internet just, you know, trying to make jokes.
Yeah.
You know, so I really like that. And I like that they are extremely fast in making adjustments to the game, whatever it is. Like if there's a bug that's going on, or if there's a rash of people trying to cheat or whatever, like these guys are staying up like for 30 plus hours straight trying to get it to work because they understand what it means to have the game work right for everybody that's trying to play it. And it shows, like you can see the effort that they're putting into it and how quickly they're able to like remedy some of the larger problems that people were experiencing in like all of the play tests. Things that I don't like. The market still has, like the trade market still has issues with filtering and the amount of spam that goes on in those marketplaces, and like not being able to filter by like I want boots, right? So like I have to be like I'm a wizard and I want boots. I have to go into the wizard trade chat, and that's fine. And there are filters, but I have to like check the box for each individual piece of footwear instead of just saying I'm looking for boots that I can wear, right? So I'd like to see them be able to like allow us to filter by slot. That would be huge. The other thing that I think I kind of sort of dislike is the idea of like there's, you know, it only takes a couple of days for like gamers to start figuring out things that work and things that don't, and then try to exploit them to like the best of their benefit.
Yeah.
A couple of things are like there are certain areas where the walls are pretty thin, and people with spears have figured out that there isn't a lot of collision when it comes to spears in certain areas, so you can get like speared through a wall from the other side. So, you know, there's some buttoning up that has to get done there. The other thing that I've noticed is the stat scaling in the game tends to be absurd. It doesn't matter what class it is. If you get somebody that's got amazingly juiced gear, they all of a sudden become like a ridiculously powerful threat to everyone and everything, no matter what class it is that you're playing. So the stat scaling kind of across the board is a little wild, I think, just for about everybody. And you start off like super weak, and you're kind of like this little like easily burned up straw man. And at some point you get like a little bit strong, and then all of a sudden you're just like a murder machine.
Yeah.
So there, in my opinion, it needs to be a little bit shrunk, where like maybe you're not as powerful when you get really decked out, but when you have nothing, maybe you're a little bit stronger, because there starts to become like this massive polarization between guys that have a ton of stats and guys that have none. And the guys that have none don't have nearly as much of a fighting chance, in my opinion, as guys that have a ton of stuff. You can catch them, but it's gonna be a pain. Like, it's not that easy, unless of course you're a barbarian that ignores 75% of somebody's armor. Which is, I think, my third criticism is the buffing of like one class, because like big meta play for the last play test was like this big murder death ball, where the cleric put a shield on a barbarian. You gave the barbarian haste. You gave the barbarian bless and like divine strike or divine blessing or whatever. And then you would throw ignite on the barb, and then the barb would just go and like go chop everything up into pieces. And that was kind of like the big play, because you can't stop them. Like, the only thing that would keep them from getting there would be like a ranger trap, but usually they just clear them because they have so much hit points. They can just be a sponge, and then the cleric heals them, and they just keep coming. So, and given that there aren't very many places where there's like long sight lines for like, you know, poke plays and stuff like that to really do anything, barbs kind of like shine, because it's all like these little tight corridors, and then, you know, they break down a door and all of a sudden he's just on like in your face and you can't do anything about it. So I think there needs to be like some kind of tweaking done for barbarians a little bit when it comes to like close quarters stuff, without inadvertently making like the guys that are more comfortable at range to like just live there. So yeah, so there's a, like balance stuff.
Yeah,
I think.
I think, and that's within the realm of expectations when it comes to playtests, is that there's going to be these fine tuning, the tweaks and stuff like that. I mean, barbarians are definitely in need of a tweak, but even wizards to a degree, with a certain builds at least. I mean, this was a build that actually was really strong, and for some reason it felt even stronger this playtest. I'm not too sure, but the Rondell Dagger Ignite build, it's crazy how I ran into someone. I don't know if they were a streamer or anyways, but they were they like every single bit of gear they had was god roll stats, like, you know, the best stats they needed for the build. And I think he had one or two legendary pieces too. I had like pretty much the best stuff. I had 39 strength, and like a tribute build gear as a fighter is probably just like the best you can go for, physical build, whatever. And he two shot me in the head with 2 stabs from a Rondell Dagger. So there are definitely balancing that needs done. And I do agree as well that, like, if I were to go in with the gear I had when I was using a lot near the playtest into normal builds, I ran into a stock guy. That stock guy has no chance of killing me. No chance. You know, they could play really well. I might even misplay, but they're not going to kill me. So I definitely agree with that. Bringing that scaling down a little bit, maybe giving I don't know, maybe like a white tier weapon for the basic kit. I don't know. That'll make it a bit too easy. Then it's hard. It's all stuff that they need to figure out. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
The trading thing as well. I like that we have filters now, and I do think that having the trades organized by class, I think, was a better change than the previous marketplace we had.
Yeah.
Although I would like to see more elaboration than the filters, like you said, and the spam as well. Definitely think. One thing I actually don't like, I think this bugged me more than anything in the playtest, is the fact that it felt like the only way you could actually earn money was by selling your treasure, including all your lanterns, or making money off the trade place. You couldn't vendor anything for a good price. Like, you could buy a blue halberd off Weaponsmith for 150 gold, but you would sell it back for like 20. So a better resale value on armor and weapons would be nice. Especially because sometimes you hang on to this like green piece that you think, okay, it's got 4 physical power or 4 magical power. It'll probably sell for about 150 gold. Never sells for some reason. And you're just like, okay, well, I can't be asked advertising for another 10 minutes in trade chat. I'm just going to vendor it for 50 gold and take my losses. So something like that I'd like to see too. And I think that would maybe help set a bit more of a precedent within the economy. People are then basing things on resale value and stuff like that, other stuff. But either way, all stuff that's more or less that just needs to be filtered and fixed through as playtests go on. Thankfully, though, and I'll bounce off what Timo said earlier too. I think the main thing for me when it comes to playtest games are the stability and the fluidity of your servers and gameplay. We had server issues, obviously. There were 100,000 people playing. But compared to last playtest, when we had less people, like you can tell there's some seriously strong server infrastructure here. And whatever mistakes there were or like hiccups there were, they were fixed overnight. Like I remember going to bed after a 12-hour day, waking up and there was a hotfix, and then did it again. Woke up next day, there was another hotfix. Like these guys are pumping these hotfixes out on an unprecedented rate. And obviously I know that's not consistent and reliable in the long term, especially when they open the game up for open beta, closed beta, or whatever. But that ability, we know they're that competent, is really nice, and it makes me happy that anything major fixing wise, it can be fixed. Yeah. But yeah, no, 100% agree across all boards. And honestly, the stuff we don't like, honestly, it's not even particularly major. The stat tuning definitely is a big thing, but with the amount of information gathered, and especially as more playtests go on, and people are like, okay, well, this was the meta last time, I'm going to try it again. I mean, more people are going to pick up these really strong builds, that more information for Iron Maze, more information for them across the board to test through and stuff, and yeah, everything will get ironed out, greased out. So we all like this playtest. I think that's a given. So I'll start this question, and then I'll bounce off for you Onepeg, then down the team. So 3 things that we would like to see in the next playtest. So I'll start with this one. First off, extra storage containers. I know there's been whispers of a treasure chest of some sort, some extra storage containers to store gold in or valuables in, items or whatever. Would love to see that. Item rotating. Please give us item rotating, please. I'm desperate for it. And for a third one, I'd like to see the. I think they increased the timer for solo, which I was happy with. That's one of the few things I asked for regarding the solo queue. I would like to see maybe 2-3 minutes added onto the high roller queue as well. The time. I more often than not, I found in high roller when I played it a bunch, is that you'd have these really cool intense team fights with other geared players, and it wouldn't be nearly as steamrolly as what you would do in normal. Like there would be way more, like you said earlier, Onepeg, way more decision making, way more strategizing and stuff like that. And you'd have to time your pushes really well. By the time all that's done, and either you're dead or they're dead, the ring's already closing on you, and you have to start looking for your extracts, and you can't have any time to loot them. And when you're doing that, when you're rushing, when people rush, what happens? You make mistakes. And then suddenly you're rushing into the other guys who are rushing as well to get to the portals, and it's suddenly just a big rush fest, and you ended up not really coming out with 1 or 2 things you really, really like. But that's 3 things I'd like to see included in the next playtest, and I'll throw it over to you, Onepeg. What would you like to see, mate?
So in regard to the treasure chest thing, I know that they have containers already made. But they are purposefully not putting them in the game because they find it interesting that people are being forced to use their inventory.
Yes, I do. So, yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do there, or if they're going to give us like extra storage or not. Like we'll have to see like where the community tries to push them in one way or the other. I mean, personally, I'm just interested in seeing like more classes come into the game. Hopefully we'll see a bard sometime soon. I'm glad that VoIP is in the game and that VoIP works. I think for me it's more around like class balance kind of stuff, and like I'd like to see them add the talent tree. That would be cool.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like other things that I know that they had been like contemplating or working on. I know that there's a lot of people that want shared stashes, but I don't think they're going to give us one, because I think that they're trying to like keep people's classes like separate. Plus, like if you're like trading items to a buddy and then back to your other character or whatever. It costs you 30 gold to do the whole deed for both parties involved. And I know that they're going to be working on gold sinks, and they're trying to slow down like the money movement, which is probably why the vendor prices are as garbage as they are.
Yeah, true.
Because over time, I know that they are reducing how much money things are worth as time goes on. But yeah, I guess I'd like to see them kind of flesh out like the idea of high roller a little bit more, because right now the majority of the high roller interactions, and this could come down to like quality of gear that's found as time goes on too, because the majority of interactions that happen in high roller is either like you're the squad that steamrolls the whole lobby and you kill everyone and everything, or you avoid everyone, try to just get to the red portal to go down into the B3 level in high roller, because that's where all the real money is. And then you focus your time just doing PvE content until you farm up enough gold worth of like treasure and stuff to just bail. So that way you can afford like better kits, so that, you know, you can do the murder death ball stuff. And that's kind of like the gameplay arc at the moment. But I mean, that, you know, that could all change over time as, like, you know, they get more variants of dungeons. And I'd like to see them finally implement a damn quest system, because I know that that's something that they've been talking about doing forever. So yeah, I think that like that would probably be number one, would be like some quests, like whether they're dailies or, you know, it's just RNG generated stuff and everybody gets a different one periodically or throughout the day, or however they're going to do it. I'd like to see something there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, agreed on all accounts. I think that, I mean, I don't think Battlestate, for example, realized how much we wanted dailies, weeklies, until they finally gave them to us. And then suddenly we had additional goals to work towards. It kept us occupied. Some of them were a little bit ridiculous for not the greatest reward, but sometimes you get one with kill 6 scavs, or here's a stim unit for your task or something like that. And it's just like, okay, cool, this is awesome. Something like that would be nice too. Yeah, definitely. Quests in general, and more levels. That excites me immensely. I know they were talking about like a surface level, like forests and stuff like that. And I think they mentioned it was going to be one of the easier levels, like an entry level kind of for most players. Because I was wanting the solo queue to be a little bit easier, because obviously it's a solo queue. But then I thought, but if we're going to be getting different levels, different difficulties, we're probably going to be getting a solo level per kind of tier almost. And the Goblin Caves we have right now could be a tier just on par, I guess you could say, with normal castle, I guess you could say. But yeah, no, fair enough. And Timo, same question to you, mate.
Yeah. So obviously this was my first playtest, so like I am not necessarily massively familiar with what features were added in this one versus previous ones. I know some. I think like the biggest thing for me playing this playtest was that the circle, and whenever I have this conversation, the immediate retort to me is, well, it forces PvP. And then I'll sit here and say, well, actually, no. In my experience, it actually prevented PvP, because like the amount of times that we got to a point where the circle was closing and we saw another squad and we were like, we could go fight them and grab what they've got. Oh, but the circle's coming in. Let's just take these portals and leave. Yeah. And that was that was over 50% of my rounds. And so I'm like, the circle feels like it's a system that they've put in place because that's the kind of the theme, you know, dark and darker and the darkness closing in. But it isn't quite in the place where it needs to be for the game to actually fit in like a puzzle piece. It feels like it, you know, it doesn't quite snap. And so I'd like to see, one of the things that I was talking about actually was that instead of it being a circle, that they actually like sectioned off all of the pieces of the dungeon, and like the on the minimap those pieces would start flashing red as they were about to go dark, and then they like go dark and like and you know, something more horrific than just the circle closing in happens to those locations, and slowly but surely the map becomes smaller and smaller by different pieces actually like disappearing. And so rather than being like, oh, the circle's coming in, we're going to insta-die if we don't just get out now, we can't take this fight, we can't grab that loot, we're actually like, you're actually repositioning and moving fights around the map based on what parts of the map are becoming unavailable and dangerous and stuff. And so that would be something that I think would be really cool. But just as a general answer, yeah, like something to do with the circle, sort of, so it doesn't feel as oppressive, because at the moment it seems like it's negating the ability to have fights more than it is promoting it. What else would I like to see? I mean, definitely the talent system. There's one thing I did when I was leveling up. I was like, the perks are really cool, but it felt kind of lackluster. In terms of levels, I'm assuming, or my assumption was playing the playtest, that the 1 to 20 experience that we experienced in the playtest was massively accelerated because it's a playtest.
Yeah.
And that it would take a lot longer to get to 20. Because on the final day of the playtest, I did a 0 to hero challenge where I started a level 1 barb and just was like, how far can I get in one stream with the level 1 barb? And I hit level 20 and got 3,000 gold, and just solo. And I was like, it's kind of, I don't want to say gear fear, but the preciousness of things disappears so fast in Darker and Darker. You stop valuing things very quickly. So I'd like to, obviously I'd like to see that. But again, I understand if it's accelerated because of it being a playtest so that they can get the full range of data, then that makes a lot of sense.
Well, that's a lot of perks too. Like the perks and spells and stuff that we have access to are like if you had the entire talent tree full. Yeah. So we're not supposed to have like nearly all that access, but that's how that was intentioned originally. But I know that they said, well, but then it made for like super interesting gameplay if everybody had like the library of things to choose from, because you saw so much variance in like people's builds and stuff. So then they kind of like left it alone. And then they weren't even sure if they were going to do a skill tree, but now they're definitely doing a skill tree. So it's it's all about balance, right? Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, 100%. For the last thing that I'd like to see, probably a balancing of the ore, because at the moment mining is just pointless.
Yeah,
it's
the amount of time that it takes, and the fact that it's RNG based on, and again, this brings back to the circle point, is that the circle again is actually oppressing rather than giving opportunity. If you want to mine, sure, bring a pickaxe in, which is a gold investment, and it's not a massive one, but it is a gold investment. It's also a quick slot item investment, which is probably more important, because you don't want to have it in your inventory, because
you don't.
Thing.
Yeah,
yeah, but if you don't spawn near ore, well, you're not mining that round.
No, you're not,
because you're not going to get halfway in and start mining, because you'll hit a ruby deposit once, and you'll be like, oh well, circle's coming again, better go. And then you need 5 ore for 1 ingot and 15 ingots for 1 chest piece, and it's just
500 ore for a suit.
Yeah,
and they're not even guaranteed.
Ore. You get 3 to 5 per node, so you're looking at an average of about 120 nodes before you are able to get a full suit. And what's funny about that is in the course of the conversation that I had with Terry, the interview that I did right before the playtest began, I specifically said, it takes forever to mine this stuff. Like, can we tweak it? And he said, I think it's been halved, but it wasn't. So, so it's the same as it was before. So I think maybe it just might have been an oversight on their part, and then they just didn't bother changing it because that wasn't the focus of like the demo. I'm hoping that they'll do something about it this like next time around or something though.
Well, at least like tiers of pickaxe, right? If we had green pickaxes, blue pickaxes that mined way faster, that would.
Well, that's an even funnier part, right? Because so rogues and rangers have the fastest physical interaction speed based on the amount of resourcefulness that they have. But a barb who has more strength than any other class beating away on one of those rocks does a worse, like less efficient job than a ranger or a rogue who are like bird boned in comparison. So like, it doesn't jive, and like these are things that have brought up already, and they're like, it's not final,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Like we know, like it's not final. Just like, come on, man. Like you got Conan the Destroyer, like beating away on this boulder, and it's not breaking faster than like the the little dude with daggers in the movie that like stabs the boss after it's dead. Like it does. Like it was just funny.
Yeah, and it's funny as well. I think as mining especially, and I think this caught me as well as many others is, people are actually hitting the ore rather than pressing F on it with the pickaxe. And
yeah, that
and
was the funny part.
I had a friend, and a friend of his was added on a solid 5 minutes. So it's like, dude, I think this thing is bugged or something like that. I'm not getting a call from it. And my teammate, who was busy, kind of like looting around. You press F in it, right?
Yeah.
But
that gets everybody the first time.
it does. It got me as well. But luckily, I had someone way smarter next to me when I started doing it. So
yeah.
but I agree. The circle, I think, became a very big point of discussion. I think when we reached about the halfway point of the playtest, and I do actually agree. And I think this is where my frustration stems in with High Roller and the time of the circle, how it works is it feels oppressive. And I do agree with that. And I think the time feels about right on normal, but I wouldn't mind it being just a touch slower. At the end of the day, the dungeon layout it's pretty big, and a lot of funnily enough, the nicer rooms, like the library, for example, the library is almost situated on one corner outside of the map. Obviously, I think that's a smart decision, but you can get a lot of stuff from that library.
Mm-hmm.
And High Roller, it's even more ridiculous. But giving more chances for exploration, giving more options for people to do, and I think at a certain point, I kind of treat the circle as a bit of a joke. I think I don't know if the damage is scaled off percentage or direct damage, like direct damage values, but I didn't treat the circle too seriously. It's like people were rushing me out the circle whilst we were looting. I was just looking up. My health was barely down. The circle was not far from me. It's fine. I'll just stay in it and loot. No big deal.
Yeah.
Something that's
it's more the blindness that it gives you.
Yeah.
Like the visual impact is more the thing.
Yeah. So I would like to see something slower, but when you're caught in it, it's a matter of like, okay, if you're in this for no longer than 10 seconds, you're gone. That's it. Like, say that you were swallowed up by the hordes of hell or whatever. I don't really care. But like I like Timo's idea about how certain rooms or parts of rooms kind of like disappear almost behind. That makes sense. It actually makes it way more eerie as well, because suddenly, if you're backed into a corner and you got that big dark corner of the room behind you, you're like, okay, what? I can either do a massive risk and run through that black corner of the room, and hopefully they don't push me or chase me or set up from the other side, or I have to fight it out here. Instead, it's more like, okay, well, I'm a ranger or a rogue. I'm just going to run away into the swarm and then just completely bypass whatever person was trying to hunt me down.
Yeah.
So
and
yeah,
towards the end of this playtest, you also had rangers and barbarians on solo on Goblin, who would be farming Cave Troll. It didn't matter if the circle was on the other side of the map. They'd sit there in the darkness and fight Cave Troll for 10 minutes. And
they can survive it.
Yeah. You just, they just bring potions, and it felt like as long as they got out before the instant death hit, they didn't care.
Yeah. And I do agree. I think that slower but deadlier. I think that would be, in my opinion, the best play. Obviously, make it a bit quicker on High Roller, but don't do it so much that like you're still being forced and pressured quickly. And hell, if you want to accelerate that even higher on hell level for High Roller hell, really stop giving people that easy PvE farm. Sure, go ahead and do that one for that level. That level's supposed to be hard. Maybe make it so the boss room is the only room that isn't affected by the darkness for the longest period of time because it's a boss fight. I don't know, spitball on top of my head, but I do agree with the swarm mechanic. The mining too. I think that we should be allowed to mine ore quicker. Definitely. Especially because we don't have any control of how the stats are going to be applied to our armor. I would like. I know that Darktide did something like this where it wasn't there at the release of the game, but if you had like a certain stat roll on a certain piece of gear and you wanted to apply it to a certain other piece of gear, you could kind of do that on stat transfer and stuff like that, but it wouldn't be a true value. It would be like a percentage. And then you'd use more materials resources to then increase that stat up and up and up. It would be costly, but then you could literally craft your own pieces of gear that would work for you and your build or whatever. Something like that would be nice. That's something else to balance though too. You don't want people getting all this really nice stuff straight away. Make it costly and time consuming and stuff like that. But yeah, more elaboration on the ore. And I assumed that was coming anyways. The cobalt stuff I think was a nice touch. I'd love to see there to be different minerals per different level. Maybe even the hell level has like a really rare chance for like a specific dark material to use or whatever. Like
obsidian or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like
in like black gear, that would be sick.
yeah.
Imagine like fucking like a black wizard robe with like gold trim.
Oh, like the Black Division of Dark and Darker. Hell yeah. No, yeah, that's
like
yeah, put a red scorpion on the robe. Let's go.
Yeah.
I feel like they could put a boss in, like a golem boss that was made of the ore types.
Yeah,
drops the ore like
you could mine the boss.
Yeah. So like you'd have a rewarding boss fight, like a difficult challenge that isn't just sort of cheesing some PvE.
Yeah.
That then rewards you with the the ores without having to sit there and just hit with a pickaxe while the circle's coming. You're like, oh.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
And above all, I think that what makes me way more excited is that in terms of how the game is developed and created, and I remember reading watching a video on about it, how it's like a modular building system. It's like an older system, but it works really well for what
Lego
they want.
bricks.
Yeah, and
like prefab rooms. Yeah,
it's good because I know that this stuff is for this dev team, especially with the success stuff they've been given, way more achievable. But this isn't like something that will come in 5 years' time. This could be something that comes within half a year. Like, I mean, obviously within reason. Let's not want all this content straight away, but the possibilities are way more realistic with this game and how it's been made. Levels, for example. I mean, I don't know how long they spent on the solo, the Goblin Caves. I don't know how long they spent designing that.
They only had a couple of weeks.
That's my point. Exactly right there. Usually, most dev teams they
made the decision after the playtest prior to this one. So with the holidays, that means that they built that and included the troll boss in like 3.5 weeks because they had like a week and a half off for like holiday stuff because of the Chinese New Year and all that.
Yeah.
So.
And that to me is way more exciting because the content can come in a much more reasonable pace. If we get something new every 2 months, that'd be fantastic. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we're so used, I think, to these big games, early access, full release or otherwise. We're waiting months and months, sometimes even a year plus for something to add on to it. And then we get games like Dark and Darker, and the way they've been built smartly. This is a project with time in mind. You know what I mean? It's not like, okay, we'll design this now, and then a year from now, that's for futurist problem. This is like, okay, we're gonna get a really solid system in place. We know will carry us as far as possible. Definitely.
The goblins. One thing that like I noticed, I spoke to Sacriel about this as well. One thing that I noticed is that the goblins, like animation, model, everything, just seemed like they'd taken a good step up.
Yeah.
From like the castle enemies and stuff. It looked very clearly like they'd learned from their previous sort of like stuff, and bringing the goblins and the Goblin Cave mobs in, like they looked really.
And what's funny about that is all of that stuff is just bought from the Unreal Store. This is the part about this that I love the most is like everybody tries to rag on games that have like market assets, like, oh, they're all prefab assets. Like, one of the largest complaints that a game like Mortal Online 2 got was like the entire game is bought and like purchased assets from like the Unreal Store. Yeah. And it's like, well, Dark and Darker is a shining example of a game that's probably going to sell 2 million units that is made of prefab assets. And it doesn't matter. If you're good at making a game, it can be made with all the little like models and stuff already all set up for you. It's just how you assemble it. Right? And like they're a perfect example of like, yeah, I can build an amazing game out of like all of these pieces and parts that somebody just kind of left laying over here in a pile. You know what I mean? Like it's cool. When you're talented, you're talented, it doesn't matter.
That's it completely. It's not like the, a bad workman blames his tools, right? But at the end of the day, if you know what you are doing, if you know, I like we said this before. These guys are gamers. They know what we like. They know what the majority like. They know our limits with things. They know, they know we have. Like, I think you described this perfectly in your video, talking about the legal stuff, Onepeg, and that is that the frustration with the game. It is tuned so finely that whenever I die, it's like, okay, I almost stop playing this game. I can't do it. It's like, okay, I just died. I need to get back to that point quick. I need to get back to that level quick. I need to get that gear back quick. I'll get something better. It is a driving frustration, and I think that's only really achieved by devs who do know what they're doing. And I do genuinely think that Iron Maces look to all the games in its genre, taken what has worked and applied it here. Like with Tarkov, for example, the game is unforgiving, but the highs are really, really high. At least, they used to be. But, like they've taken that and they've taken that element and they've just refined it, beat the shit out of it in the forge, and then and then crafted it into something that just feels right. And, I think this is why I appreciate the most about it, is because it feels like the game caters to what I, as a gamer, would like. It's not for everybody. Like every game, it's going to have people that don't like it. But for the most part, I think the reason why it's so wildly popular is because these guys know what game won. At least the majority of them. But yeah, bit of a tangent to there. But yeah, it's funny really because this actually leads on perfectly to my next question. And Tima, I'll throw this to you first. And we all played extraction games of various different genres and types. We're literally talking about Zero Sievert before I went live. What do you think? You can make this top one thing, top two things, whatever. What do you think sets Dark and Darker aside from any other extraction game you've played thus far?
It's the only, as far as I'm aware, it's the only attempt to merge a melee slasher and an extraction game together. Obviously, Mordhau did a battle royale mode that is probably the closest thing to Dark and Darker, but it's really not. It's almost like they built a game in a niche that nobody knew that they needed until they played it, and then they realized that they needed it.
That's perfect. Yeah, I didn't know I needed this kind of extraction game until I started playing it. 100%. Yeah, definitely. And Onepeg, same question to you, mate. What do you think sets it apart the most? Or
I think it's that. I think it's like the super difficult like dungeon crawler like feel experience, where you have to deal with very difficult mobs that are, like when you're learning, like they're capable of like one-shotting you. So it gives you like that, like that whole, oh my gosh, like this game is like it's crazy. Like I remember getting in there the first couple of times. Actually, there's B-roll of me talking about my first like dev summary that I did for the first interview that I did with Terry for the Q&A. I did a summary, and the B-roll footage was like my first time playing the game. And the comments were like, I really like your commentary, but your gameplay is ass. Because like I had no idea what I was doing, but I put it in there like on purpose because I figured it'd be funny. And like it's just like one of those where it's like I don't know how to like range against like the skeletons. They're walking up, and one of them just like I tried to like duck a swing, and he swung overhand and just like clapped me on top of my head, folded like a lawn chair, and I was just like, what the fuck? It was like the second time I had ever played, second round ever, and not knowing anything about it. And just, I remember being so frustrated with dying like that. And I was just like, all right, I need to figure this shit out. So like that nervous anxiety that you got, like same feel like for your first like handful, like your first 100 hours of Tarkov raids, when you're like, you still got the map on like the other screen, and you're like trying to like, where the hell am I going? Like there's like, I've got, between the playtests and the one that just happened, I'm over 240 hours. And I'm like living in it. and I know that they're still like, I still don't have it straight, especially because they'll start changing the maps and stuff, and that's one of the things that I dig about this is like they can be iterative almost whenever they want to when it comes to like numbers of portals that spawn and like how many spawns there are and how many hit points they have, and like they don't have to do hot fixes for any of that shit. They just have like little dials that they tweak and like modify stats on the fly. So like one raid, it could be one thing, and then the next raid, it's a different set of variables. And like, they can push out a hot fix that just like rearranges a bunch of the blocks, and now the map's different with like a little bit of a different flow. So yeah, it's like the thing for me about the game is like that nervous anxiety kind of coupled with like a watered down version of like the slasher mechanics that you would get in like Kingdom Come Deliverance or a Mordhau or Mortal Online or Chivalry or like any Mountain Blade or whatever. Like they're all like kind of inspired in there, and then you have like the Dungeons and Dragons inspired like classes and skill names, even though like the names of the abilities aren't really like what happens or how they're used in Dungeons and Dragons. Like you can tell that like SDF, who's the creative director, the guy that's like kind of directing how things are going to go and like what classes are going to be in and everything. You can tell that he's a huge D&D nerd, and he loves like that idea in the dungeon setting. So it's like it's kind of like all that mix plus like just the thinking ahead of like the torches have ambient noise, right? Like the torches on the walls and like the braziers and all that, like they all have like these like this little bit of like fiery ambient noise. You extinguish them and you can hear a butterfly fart from like two, you know what I'm saying? Like so in like being able to take all the light away and like those like little smart things where it's like when you're first starting out, you don't realize that there are certain mechanics that you can use to your advantage until you actually start like really playing it. And it's like, man, they thought ahead. Like that's cheeky. Like I really like when they add those little nuances, because it's simple on the surface, but then you get into it and you're like, oh shit, like there's actually like a lot going on in here. Like you were saying at the start. Games like that are the things that draw me the most. It's why I like Tarkov as much as I do. It's why I was drawn to playing Ark for thousands of hours because of like the breeding systems and all of that. It's all the same things, like trying to figure out the way that it works, and how you can use those like little mechanical things to your advantage and just be outbraining people. That's why I think the game does as well as it does. It's just the mix. The mix is awesome.
Yeah, completely agree. And in terms of the D&D inspired abilities, I think Fireball works just as intended. Plenty of teammate damage. Funny.
Yep, it sure does. Mm-hmm.
Apart from in D&D, Fireballs are 30-foot.
Yeah. They're a bit more contained. Yeah.
My favorite is when you get the barbarian that has all the magic resist perks and everything, and then they're just like, just chain lightning off me.
Yeah.
And you just nuke the other guys. Just you. It's fine. Just hit me with it. And it made me laugh.
I have a teammate who me and Josh played with the most. He was an insane wizard, and he was like so scared of hitting Josh as a barbarian. He's like, Josh, it's like, you can't hurt me. You can't do it. Just hit me. Do it. Throw a fireball at me. It'll bounce off me and hit them. Yeah. Yeah.
Until you have like crazy gear and you have like all the plus true damage, and then the barb goes, "What the fuck is that?"
Oh man. But yeah, no, I do agree. It's like I said. Timo's absolutely right. From you were looking at a stream or even a video, and you think, "What is this game? What's the appeal?" And you play it, and then you do see all these cheeky little things and stuff like that can percentile based improve your performance. I love games like that. I love games that really reward you for knowledge, but it's more of a small edge knowledge. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, okay, well, I have M61. I know I can two-tap anything in the game. I know I can, unless they get a lucky ricochet off the helmet. That's a knowledge that would win me most fights as long as I played well. With Dark and Darker, the knowledge it gives you is, okay, here's the knowledge, but you've got to apply it and put it into practice way more than other games would ask of you to do.
I mean, that is until you're running like Fulgur Longsword or Cinder Halberd, and then you're going to two-shot anything anyway.
I can't believe I didn't get Fulgur, man. I just, God, I was it Secret Anthony? I think it was Anthony Kongfan who had it.
Anthony Kongfan was running Fulgur.
Yeah. When I saw that, I swear to you, man, I was like on the edge of my seat looking at it.
Man.
Oh God, it's so cool. And it's funny as well, the little things, like, I was talking to my friend about this. What if magical builds actually affected the outcome of these unique weapons? So, and that's so cool, because then you can suddenly have like an Eldritch Knight fighter. You build all this magic damage around Fulgur, and suddenly you're I love stuff like that, man. I love the quirkiness of stuff like that. Obviously, we're going to see some tuning, obviously, but the point is now the quirkiness is already there. The variety is already there. It's just bringing the levels down a little bit, but the variety is still there. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
It really is
I
great.
mean, that actually spikes something off in my head immediately that I think would be incredibly cool and would need balancing, but would be incredible. Imagine you had a trader, a merchant that was like the Enchantress, and you could gather random reagents in the dungeons, right? You know, like Eye of Newt, things like that, you know, like random stuff you can find. And if you bring a set of ingredients to her, she will enchant a weapon with like a specific element or something. And then your plus magical gear actually applies to that weapon. That sounds amazing to me.
I think a
So like how the crystal sword works.
yeah, like it is. I was literally about to say about the crystal sword, like you have ignite, but you also have like a lightning enchantment on it, for example. Like that'd be cool.
Imagine if you had the ability to pull reagents by disenchanting all the shit gear that drops.
Oh god.
Instead of guys trying to sell it for 250 gold on the market.
I don't know why this isn't more of a standard practice, because there are games that have done it really well and really smartly. Just being able to convert gear that I don't really need to sell or don't want to sell. Just knowing that I can scrap this gear and get valuable stuff from it to put towards something else, like conversion.
Dude, even if it was like Matt's to like how Diablo 3 works, where you have to pick like a single line item stat that you could reroll.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like anything like that. And I'm sure that it's on the list. It's just one of those things that like that would cut down on the flooding of the damn market like right away, because you'd only see people selling stuff that like really mattered.
Yeah.
Although I will say that at some level, at some extent, every stat in the game, with the exception of resourcefulness, kind of, but every stat in the game more or less has usefulness for everyone. Right? Like agility's move speed, strength is hit points, will is spell, is magic damage mitigation.
Resist.
Yeah, magic resist, and knowledge is haste. So it's still got uses regardless of whoever's, I guess, using it.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool.
I agree with that.
Magical interaction speed on knowledge too, but that's not really a thing in the game yet.
Yeah. So. I noticed that when you do go for the full attribute build as a fighter, and when I'm swinging my longsword around, you feel that speed increase. You feel that haste increase. Like I'm attacking things quick. Oh god. Oh right. Okay. I'm attacking way quicker now.
Run fast on plate.
Yeah.
If you have a fighter with 40 agility on him, you know what I mean? All of a sudden you're
not escaping.
And also the minor swing speed increases actually do stack up in terms of the agility as well.
You're right.
Like I was running I think I was running Weapon Master Bardiche on a fighter, and I had like 32, 33 agility. Like I was decently stacked up, ish. And I was like swinging this Bardiche faster than like or at around about the same pace as the barbarian next to me was swinging a horseman's axe, and I'm just there
yeah, it's cool. And people don't think of that stuff, right? Like knowledge on clerics. People are like, oh, if I have a cleric, I just need like 15 knowledge so that I can have like a good enough spell allocation or whatever. But you don't realize, like, when you get up into like 25 to 28, how much faster your spells become, because every point of knowledge is 5% spell haste.
Yeah.
So like, that kind of stuff. And then when you realize it, it's almost like, well, I can get my spells off faster. So that almost makes knowledge like even keel with will, because will is how much bigger my heals are, right? So it's like I could have big slow heals, or I could have a heal that's not nearly as big, but I can get it out twice as fast as I did before.
Yeah, it's like most. You're good, bro. It's like in World of Warcraft. Like they have every healing class has two general types of abilities. You got your quick heal, which is inexpensive but quick enough to get off, and you got your longer heal, which is more expensive but heals more. So stuff like that would be nice and more. Yeah, 100% agree. And I think that with the D&D character sheet style system that they're going to be choosing out, especially when talents come into play, I think talents are going to broaden the possibilities for your character even wider. The possibilities of just having a specialization for your fighter, for your ranger, like arcane ranger, or like the barbarian, you could have like a battle master or something like that. For a fight, you could have the eldritch knight. For a wizard, you could have sorcerer, which is, I know that they talked about the wizard being like not quite an expert, but like someone who's more or less dabbled or started dabbling in magic, and they're kind of figuring it out in terms of like the
Well, they have a
class
wide
lore.
variety of things that they can use. There's supposed to be like more utility involved.
Yeah.
Whereas like the sorcerer is just like, I like fireball. Like they're like Ugga Dugga but magic.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, but the potential there is just it drives me like just oh man, I can keep talking about this.
It's cool.
But yeah, I mean, so next question. I knew we were going to nerd out about this. I knew we were. That's why I give us more time. So next question up. Now this one is going to be a bit more of a broader spectrum kind of deal, but we're going to talk a bit more about the industry practices of Iron Mace and Dark and Darker, the standards they've set, the quality of the products they provided already, and we're going to then compare them to current extraction shooters in the market. So I'll start with you, Timo. What do you think this game and how it's been kind of like how it's blown up, the development, the practices, the smart decision making? Do you think this is going to have like a domino effect for other developers maybe in the same field? Are they going to start kind of reconsidering things? Are they going to start maybe getting a bit worried about genuine, truthful competition? Like, yeah, go ahead.
It's an interesting question. So I personally think that Dark and Darker, one of the things that I love about it, and this is something that I've stated a few times now, is that it feels like it might finally be the first time that Tarkov has actually truly been competed against. Like there have been other extraction shooters, but they have like existed for a short period of time and not really competed. One of the things that I saw with the Cycle, when the Cycle launched, and I was like, oh, actually, yeah, this is good fun. And then a week and a half into Cycle's launch, and Tarkov wiped, and the player base just died instantaneously. I think Dark and Darker has enough of a core foundation to be a genuine threat to Escape from Tarkov, but I also think that for the most part, they are like if you think about them as a Venn diagram, they actually don't have as much crossover as I think many people believe. And it's a lot of Tarkov content creators have been moving across to Dark and Darker with the playtest and enjoying it a lot. But also I've sort of realized that, or at least in terms of sort of my experiences, that from a viewership perspective, Dark and Darker is appealing to an entirely different audience, almost with just a small amount of crossover. So I think, to answer your question, I don't think there's going to be a lot of pressure to adjust or to like step up your game. I mean, BSG is under an insane amount of pressure from the community at the moment anyway. Just because of all of the like stuff going on at the moment, which is, I can't even keep up with. I think what Dark and Darker is going to do is just offer people that want that same brain chemical feeling that Tarkov gives. Dark and Darker is the first other time that I've experienced that exact same sort of like brain feeling.
The neurons firing.
Yeah. That has just been incredible. And so I think that is where it competes. It competes because it hits that exact same spot that Tarkov. The reason why there's never been any Tarkov competition is because no other game has come close to like getting that feeling.
Yeah.
But Dark and Darker does. So I'm not sure.
So it's less of a standard. It's like it's a strong competitor, but it's more of a strong alternative. Like yeah. So that's a fair answer. I'd agree with that. I mean, like you said, slightly different audience, slightly different kind of general build and stuff like that. But yeah, Dark and Darker is more like, okay, don't play this game, play us instead. It's like, play that game. But we offer something as well too. You know what I mean? I think that's a fair way to look at it. Yeah, Onepeg, same question to you, mate.
Yeah, I mean, the devs are clearly more receptive than we've seen most development teams, regardless of game genre, I think. They're clearly working very, very hard to deliver something that they think the public wants. I think that you can see it both in the things that they say and the things that they do, which weigh even more than the things that they say. I think my concern over the game's longevity is going to be what early access ends up looking like once the player base gets like a few weeks in. Because as always, it comes down to duration of content and what it is that you've got, and variety, and all those things. And the staying power of games like Tarkov is always like there's lots of different angles in which you can get clapped. There's still like a lot of stuff that you can learn from it. There's always somebody pulling some cheeky maneuver that you didn't think of, and there's something to learn from it. It's kind of like the staying power of a game like Dota is the same deal, or Counter-Strike is the same deal. Whereas like, yeah, there's a lot of the same style of plays, but there's still that human element, and that's kind of the primary driving force behind it. So the more like the more class balance and the more variety they can put into the game, so that people don't feel like they're getting bored with the same old. If they can have something that's got like a lot of substance to it and a lot of things to learn, I think that it definitely will be around for a while. I don't know if it's going to kill Tark, but I think it's the best thing that we've seen in this whole like extraction style genre, whether it's a slasher or a shooter, that has the best chance so far after playing just about all of them. It's probably got the best chance of any of the other games that have come before it that would actually give it a run, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as someone who has played a lot of Psycho Frontier and I'm doing a lot of testing for season 3 now as well.
Way more the end game than that than I.
Yeah, but I can say that for that feeling, that feeling your brain firing up and stuff like that, that was present in the cycle. But then you would start to get to the end game and things just seem to kind of go flat. Like you had cool activities to do. Calling orbital drills for the first time was incredible. You felt it's the most. I think calling down my first orbital drill on cycle was like way more anxiety inducing than my first game on Tarkov ever was, because everyone's seen it, everyone's heard it, and they're gonna come and try because they know the payout's gonna be worth it no matter what. But then the necessity of doing that kind of dissipated for a while. And then there wasn't enough to do, and I think that was the cycle's main thing, was that season 1 was the cheater infestation period. They fixed that for season 2. We did get a new map, but there just wasn't enough to kind of sustain it for the full season. And they're going to be doing a lot of really cool stuff, of course. But I mean, but regardless of that, as someone who's a bit advocate for Cycle, and I'm quite harsh on it, I do agree that Dark and Darker, I think, has the genuinely the most potential to really, really carve its place, not just amongst extraction games, but some of the best games. Like, I think personally, it could. Once we reach that point, it could be the Hunt Showdown of its genre. It could be that game that's just like, okay, that game we all know is really, really good. The devs are really cool. The content's coming at a good pace, maybe even a quicker pace than Hunt. I think it's got the biggest potential to do that so far. And like I keep saying, the devs just seem so clued in on what is missing right now. And I think even the mission statement says on their website, they're so tired of these industry practices that focus way more about making the most money than making the game more enjoyable and more like last long. So, yeah, no,
it's like a passion project.
It does.
The entire game does. Yeah.
It feels like a passion project for sure.
This is going to be a bit of a reach. The next thing is going to be us kind of nerding out for a bit anyway, so it's fine. We can go off on tangents now. I have the same feeling with Dark and Darker in terms of feeling the passion than I did for, it might be a stretch, you might have played it, the Citadel DLC for Mass Effect 3. The entire DLC felt like a self-aware love letter from the devs to the fans. And it was easily the best, the funniest DLC I think I've played in most games. But because, the devs back then, at least, they knew what we liked, that they played upon everything and stuff like that. And I think it's a similar feeling to Dark and Darker because the devs are very aware of everything that works in a game, doesn't work in a game. The kind of like the just the little things that kind of improve your experience, that pushing you on and, just get bettering yourself just a little bit more each time you die and stuff like that. Like the same thing Tarkov does. And I think the absolute best feeling about it too is that as much as you can run into these overpowered builds and stuff like that can just annihilate you, like best in slot wizards can roll through entire teams before they even know what's going on. But I think that we have way more control in how our character dies. We could get shot by an arrow at the blue, but more often than not, if that does happen, it's probably not enough to quite kill you. It gives you a chance to kind of bounce back and recoup. You can hear people more often than not before they even come to you. Anyways, you can hear things like weapon swapping, potions being potted, spells being cast, buffs, etc. It gives us way more information. It gives us way more control about what we want to do.
It works.
And the audio is
actually works.
Absolutely fantastic on multiple levels too. It's not just a flat level. You've got. I know exactly where people are. And I absolutely I've missed it, man. I've missed having working audio. Cycle has great audio too, but just having the occlusion zones just feel like they're on point. There's been very few places I feel like I've been like, where the hell are these guys? There's one place I know for sure that has this, not even a problem, it's just this slight, like, okay, is he there? I call it Donut Room. That big ring room. Yeah. Lion's head chest in the middle, it's always open, guided by archers, whatever. Obviously, there's like the donut level, which is like the ground floor, and then you got the upper ring level. There's obviously side passages around it. If someone's coming from either one of those, it's a new room. Yeah. But one thing I noticed, anyways, which I think was really, really great, a nice little touch, is that I could tell where they were coming from, regardless from where the torchlight was, because you don't know. It's not like the light's clipping through. It's just I have the audio, but then I can see like the little flicker of light just edging around the corner. And failing that, I'm gonna see the potions on their belt, and then I'll know for sure. Yep. So it's not even like a faulty area per se. It's just like, okay, well, this could be confusing, but the game's offered me alternatives to kind of like reach that conclusion of where they're coming from quicker. The audio's incredible, and it was tested. It felt like it was tested before release. Even in some of the early playtests, it felt like we need to get this audio of this very, very important system down.
Testing before release.
Yeah. Honestly, it always
internal testing.
It always comes back to it, man. It always comes back to how Tarkov BSG could be better. It always comes back to it. Mm-hmm. And this is why I asked earlier, like, do you think the practices in place are going to light a fire on not just BSG's ass, but other people's asses too? I mean,
it would be amazing for them to have any like real competition, because you'd actually see like shit get fixed.
You would, and at the end of the day, it's like Timo said, the amount of pressure that they're underneath right now since the beginning of this wipe is, I've playing the game for a while. I've had about a year and a bit off, but I've still never seen as much pressure from the community on BSG than I have been in a long time. I think the pressure I've seen from this was like when the servers were absolutely horrible after the first Rich Drops event. People were screaming.
They're currently down, by the way.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I think the Dark and Dark DOSers got bored and went over there instead.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, generally speaking, though, I mean, it feels like already like I've got the majority of the experience for Dark and Darker, and we're not even close to the closed beta. At least I don't think we are. Right then, so I think we've gotten the majority of them out the way and done with already, but we're gonna start wrapping up with some final thoughts. So we've talked about what we want to see next play test, what we liked and disliked. We talked a little bit as well about the potential and stuff like that. But Onepeg, if there was anything you wanted to close out some final thoughts with, it could be absolutely anything regarding the Dark and Darker. It could be the next play test, could be down the line, whatever. What's on your mind?
There is a game that has been around for a few years called Phantom Abyss. It's a temple runner. I'll get to the point here in a second.
Sure.
It's a temple runner. The idea being that it's technically multiplayer, okay? But the way that it runs is you're like Indiana Jones with a whip, okay? You run through the temple and try to get to the other end of the temple before you die or the timer runs out. And then as you finish one temple, you move to like the next level, right? It like constantly like whittles down the people that started at temple 1 all the way down to the final one. Where eventually if you get all the way to the very end, and it gives you choices every couple of levels, you can choose to leave or you can choose to like try and progress, and eventually you get to like this boss level, and it's like crazy hard. Most people don't make it all the way to the end. It actually gives you stats to tell you like the number of people that have been capable of getting all the way to the end of like this particular run. But for the most part, it's procedural. I don't think that Dark and Darker will ever become procedural, but what I would like to see them do is come up with more variety for their maps, whether it's 5 or 6 different B1s and 5 B2s and 4 or 5 B3s. Like I'm sure they're going to come up with more than just 2 or 3 or 5 bosses. So perhaps each layout will be a bit different each time. But my hope is that their level designers will continue to be iterative on whatever layouts they have going on, and not have it just be like a mishmash of blocks, but give us enough like variety to where it's like, oh, I'm not like, I'd like actually to see there be so much variety that when you first spawn into the map, you're not quite sure which one of the maps you're on. So that way, like, you're not, oh, there's an altar here, there's an altar there, there's an altar, I mean, like there's the treasure room, like I know where to rush. Because right now, there's 2 B2s, 2 B3s on normal, there's 3 B2s and 2 B3s on high roller. That's it. And for the most part, like, you can just pull that from a library on a wiki, and you'll know, like, all right, well, there's an altar over there, there's an altar here. Like, there's 3 altars on one of the B2 maps and like 7 on the other one. Because all that stuff's been mapped out already, like all the treasure chest locations, like it's all been hand placed. Like, people have been making maps for these things, and they're interactive, and you can like filter them, and it's like going to Map Genie, same kind of thing. So I would like to see them give us a variety of maps with varying layouts, boss placements and all this other stuff. I would love to see them do that from the building blocks that they have, and hopefully more that they're going to make, to where the gameplay loop doesn't become like all right, well, we just need to rush over to this room and we're gonna hit the treasure pile, and then we're gonna go over here, and if we run into guys, we're just gonna steamroll them. You know what I mean? Like, give us enough variety to where it doesn't become boring between the maps and between the class allocations, and like how we can adjust things, And I'd also like to see them make something aside from like meta builds, not just in team comp, but as like individual play styles. Make sure that they actually have some viability, because things like 2-handed weapons make you incredibly slow. Especially if you're like a cleric, for instance. If you're going to try and play drunken cleric and you want to hold a war maul, like, best of luck to you, bro, because everybody will be able to just walk away from you. I would love to see like those alternative styles of play have like stat allocations that can flesh those builds out to where they actually will work, and work well enough to where people not only would be able to like go, oh yeah, well, I guess that's okay, but it would be like a desirable alternative to just using one particular class. Yeah,
I agree completely. I know we got I think maybe 1 or 2 more variations of certain maps with this playtest. It was nice to see though, and I think that from last time as well, I know that we had the I call it super donut room, but with that massive chasm in the middle, really dark at the bottom, spider spawners, like, and there's that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know that used to be one of the regular.
Before they changed it.
I've only played playtest 2 and 3. I never played much of playtest 1.
Okay, so did you play before they added it just to high roller?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Okay.
So when it was like a big flat platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember there being. So I remember that. I remember that, and I like there being a bit more variations, like especially with some of the rooms and how they're placed and stuff like that. So I'd agree. I'd love to see some more of that. Maybe if they want to add 1 to 2 variations per playtest until we reach closed beta, then they can go on a better schedule. Then whatever. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see the talent tree kind of expand upon like I said, the variety. Like you said with clerics and war mauls, maybe there's if you put like, I don't know, 5 points into 2-handed specialization, you can swing things like quarterstaffs and war mauls 10 to 20% quicker than they are. So just something like that to kind of like even out. Because it felt like to a point that as a fighter, there was really only 3 different weapons I should be using: arming sword and shield, longsword, or spear. And I think that was the case for rangers. The most common one was spear and longbow, a recurve bow.
Less damage on the warmaul, but make it like let us run a little bit quicker with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Otherwise
Just
nobody's gonna use the damn thing.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. So stuff like that would be nice. Maybe they're reserving the talent tree for that. I don't know, sure, but I mean,
maybe.
At the end of the day, they can always give us an early talent tree. Let us test a few more things, see the real impact, and then they can pull the talent tree down the next play test, fine tune it, whatever. There's plenty they can do with that for sure. And Timo, good question to you, mate. Any closing thoughts? Or anything you want to kind of like gush about?
Yeah, funnily enough, actually, the kind of what I want to talk about kind of riffs off of what Onepeg was just saying. One of the big things that I'd love to see is in the talent system, real Dungeons and Dragons-esque. On certain levels, you get to apply a few extra attribute points to your character, and I think I'd love to see that. In Dark and Darker, and maybe also make it respecable for exactly what Onepeg was saying. If you had a small attribute point, maybe like 6-8 attribute points, right, in total once you hit level 20, not a huge amount, nothing game changing that's going to cause a lot of problems, but just enough in order to be able to like shuffle it around and make certain builds more viable. That would be really, really cool, and something that I'd really like to see as part of the talent and level up system. The other one was interesting. It's sort of when you're talking about Phantom Abyss and sort of like the levels and stuff. One thing that I identified immediately with this game is I'm a big fan of roguelites. I really like games like Hades and stuff like roguelites.
Oh yeah.
I immediately identified Dark and Darker could very easily take what they've built already and make a cooperative roguelite, or like a solo or cooperative roguelite dungeon crawler where you just keep going down,
like a solo tower or something.
And like every certain amount of floors has a boss or something, and then they're like at the end of each floor you don't need to worry about the circle, you just have blue portals and red portals. Like, would you like to leave, would you like to go down? And if you leave, then you get a score and you get like certain currency for meta progression and stuff, for gear
plus dungeons.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like that would just be, and then you get like a whole leaderboard, like, someone's hit level minus 111 on this dungeon and stuff. And you're like,
it's almost like, it's like hardcore, but it's not full hardcore.
Yeah.
You lose your gear, but you don't lose your progress.
Yeah.
I'm down for that.
100%. 100%. I think I used to play a little bit of I don't remember the name of the number, the online Final Fantasy game. And I think one of my favorite things about it was the Tower of the Dead, and how there was a way to kind of progress new characters, but push them through consistently harder and harder levels. And it became quite similar to a roguelike experience in that there were different modifiers and stuff like that. You could cancel or buff modifiers, whatever. I love stuff like that. And I definitely agree. I mean, I could see Dark and Darker easily having like a roguelike element, whether it's maybe incorporated into the main game or as like a separate mode. There's a very big potential there for roguelite. 100% agree. And if you do like roguelites, you've probably played it already, but Against the Storm is something I've been playing recently. Love that roguelite city builder. Love it. Really, really good. But yeah, no, 100% agree. I think with roguelites as a whole is that, and I think why it would work well with Dark and Darker is that you take everything that's currently Dark and Darker, but it would sync really well with a roguelite, kind of like that random element, but then you get that nice roll on a spell ability, like you could have like a +1 to whatever skill point you have, or maybe buff slightly damage for longsword. That could very easily be something that could really lift the game up even further. And there are not that many people who don't like roguelites. Typically, roguelites are very, very, very popular. So.
Yeah, and they have huge audiences as well. Massive audiences. And it would be a completely different audience as well. You'd take the PvP audience that Dark and Darker already has, and you'd bring in a massive roguelite audience, and you'd get crossover, and you'd get like, just more everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100% agree.
I'd like to see an offline mode too, like how Dark has, where you can like just take in your gear set and like do testing.
Yeah.
How good is this on mobs? Anything. Go try and practice. I don't know, a dungeon route or something that you were looking at doing, or I think an offline mode where you could like test gear sets and stuff and not worry about like losing it would be good.
Yeah,
big agree. Just go to a training range.
Accounts, just have fun.
Yeah, like a fighting pit where the goblin merchant in the middle, you just beat the shit out of him for all the gold he's stolen off you. Yeah.
Damn Gamba.
Damn Gamba Goblin, man. He was very kind to me at this playtest, though. He was very, very kind.
Nice. He was not kind to me.
Yeah. Josh kept saying, like, the amount of money I've given him puts all his fucking kids through college and tuition and stuff like that, like, it's mad. But yeah, I definitely allowed some time for us to nerd out a little bit here. And I'm glad we did, because I think when you talk about stuff like this, there's always the degree of, we could talk about this, but will it actually ever happen? It kind of sours the notes a little bit. But with Dark and Darker, you do really feel that potential, and you do really feel like with how they've done things, it's very achievable too. It's not like a big diversion, not a big, it won't take away. There's a lot to add to the game, but there's a lot.
The cool part is that I can ask them this stuff, and they'll have an answer for me, right? Like, have you thought about doing this? We don't really think that we want to do that, right? Like this karma system. Sacriel said, well, like, you could, possibly give the guy that died on the TK a choice whether or not they're going to be able to loot their shit at all. And he was like, well, that's not really the game.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to get TK'd, you're going to get TK'd. If somebody takes your stuff, they take your stuff. You know what I mean? So, he was like, we don't want people to have, we want them to have freedom of choice, but we want them to have repercussions for their decisions.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, all right, yeah, that's fair. So like they have a fleshed out response. Like you can tell that they've thought about it. And if it's something they haven't thought about, like I genuinely believe if they say, all right, yeah, we'll look at it. I believe that they will. And then the next time I ask the question, hopefully they have an answer for it. But it feels like it's, they're actually putting thought into this thing instead of just going like, hey, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And I think that's where we got a lot of stuff with, a lot of podcast interviews with Nikita and stuff like that with BSG. There was a lot of maybes. Yeah, this sounds good. Yeah, this sounds good. It more felt like you were asking him questions, and it was more like, yeah, we'll think about it. There wasn't really a lot to go off. Whereas with devs like Iron Mates, and I had the same experience with Cycle as well. Actually, I asked a question and we talk about it. Like, we really like that idea. We're definitely going to put some thought into this, or we don't really think this is going to be the right decision. You know what I mean? And I definitely get that vibe a lot more from them. Just like I said, just the transparency, the communication, like
it's just nice knowing that you can get a damn answer.
Yeah, that's it. And because at the end of the day, this is something I have. You could be super busy. Developers typically are very busy. It takes 30 seconds to 2 minutes to write up a reply, social media post, or reply to someone, an announcement. It doesn't take that long. It doesn't take away resources. It doesn't take away important attention from other things that need attending to. It's just communication, generally speaking, really is a low effort kind of thing. And when devs don't make this a common practice, it does nothing but just breed a lot of distrust. And in some degrees, not to say that I condone any of this kind of hate and stuff like that, or people go way too far, but to a degree, dev teams like BSG who don't value, well, they say they value it, but actions dictate otherwise. Some of the hate they get and stuff like that, to a degree, is almost like, okay, well, this person probably wouldn't be as hateful and frustrated if you just communicated a little bit more. There's always going to be people who are going to be hateful for whatever reason. But they're people just can't be reasoned with. You usually detect them pretty early on. But then the majority of people are just people who have the same frustration, but you have a conversation with them and it's like, oh, well, fair enough. I'm at a more calm, reasonable place now. And that's all it takes. That's all it takes. And, not to take too much away from Dark and Darker, but maybe we'll see some more changes across the board for certain other, dev teams. We can only hope, because at the end of the day, games like Tarkov, I think, in Dark and Darker, Psycho Frontier, etc., they all wouldn't exist without Tarkov itself. They
agree.
So at the end of the day, that the granddaddy has set the example. Otherwise, the student will become the master, as it always goes.
I agree.
Right then, and that's more or less wrapping up that podcast interview. So let's finish up with arguably the most important part of the podcast. Timo, where can we find you, and when can we find you?
I stream Monday to Thursday, starting at 3 p.m. GMT. That's 10 a.m. Eastern. over at twitch.tv/Tim_Redbeard. I also put up daily YouTube videos. They are weird Let's Plays of Mercenaries games, which is maybe not the niche that this podcast is going towards. But I'm weird and I like them. But otherwise, yeah, that's that.
And also make sure you check out some of his Valheim gameplay. He's building the coolest goddamn tower. Like, the coolest looking tower I've ever seen in the game. Like, make sure you check it out.
So it's a one-to-one reproduction of Orthanc from Lord of the Rings, which is Saruman's tower.
Yep. And it already looks fantastic. So make sure you check out videos, Twitch streams, especially of that too. He's a very good Valheim content creator too. Onepeg, same question to you, mate. When and where can we find you?
On YouTube, you just look for Onepeg. Twitch.tv/Onepeg. And I stream every day around 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Usually have a video or two. Lately up about every other day. So lots of content to watch. And I usually play extraction related games. Although lately I have been avoiding Tarkov like the plague just because I am not a fan of the development team at the moment. I think that they've made a lot of mistakes, but I'm not gonna sit here and like try to denigrate another group of people. So we've been playing a lot of Star Citizen lately, and a lot of like been playing Hitman and Star Citizen and other stuff. You know, just kind of like having fun and like laughing at janky game mechanics and crashing into things. I got torpedoed by a stream sniper today, so that was sweet.
Hell yeah, nice.
Yep, some dude came ripping by in an Eclipse and torpedoed the hell out of me when I was picking up a little box of toxic waste in a Carrack, which is like one of the largest ships in the game. It would like didn't even make sense. I put like this little teeny box in the cargo hold, like just by itself in like this giant ass cargo bay, and then went to take off and somebody torpedoed me, and I was like, oh, all right, well that'll be back in 45 minutes. Now what do I want to do? So yeah, just been playing, whatever. We're just having a good time, man, laughing. That's it.
And I can say that, you head over to Onepeg stream and you're always going to laugh at something. Doesn't matter what the content is, the subject is, there's always going to be some laughs to be had. So
either the content or him.
Yeah, exactly.
Something
right.
stupid happens, yeah, for sure.
And, at the very bottom of the barrel, Onepeg will tweet out, YouTube comments. And, they're always gold. They're always gold.
Great.
The copy pastas have been on point recently. So, yeah.
Amazing.
And that'll be the conclusion of CLAYCAST episode 4. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure if you haven't already to like the video, leave a comment on it. Helps the algorithm. And also, if you'd like some more of these CLAYCASTs to come up your way, leave a sub so I know for sure. With that being said, guys, I will see you on the next video, whether that be CLAYCAST again or a Darker video. Take care, stay safe, love you all, and peace.